had a spot on lunch. This afternoon sessions start off with what I like to call the forgotten ladies. You're not forgotten by us, and you're not forgotten by your family, but you are forgotten. You support your husbands, partners, and for some of you, I know you've experienced the loss of your partner and child. So we'll be listening to them. We have on Zoom, unfortunately you couldn't get here in person, but on Zoom we have Marion, who's going to make her on screen. There we go. But I wanted to introduce this group because I did some research last week trying to find online. If you Google online nuclear testing program, you will get thousands and thousands of documents. You will get thousands and thousands of videos. You'll get some good videos, some bad videos, some amazing testimonies from veterans. Brian has made lots of videos of veterans' testimony, and you've seen how powerful it is today. But try and find a video of a wife or a widow talking about their husband's participation in the tests. It is almost impossible to find them, because they're always in the background, they're always sitting behind, or they're in the background, or they've lost a partner, and they're not in the public eye. Now, I'm not putting you in the public spotlight, because I know some of you are nervous to this, because this is really the first one ever that is coming out relating to this and how it's affected you. Now, we've listened to the veterans, and we've listened to how it affected them while they're on the island. Now, obviously, these, for some here, there's wives, widows, their husbands, could be their second husband, it doesn't have to be their first husband, second husband. That person, that veteran, is carrying that psychological problems all the way through. So we're going to listen to that, and I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Christina Keeley-Jones.
Thank you.
Who has had another traumatic trip, but has managed to make it, which is amazing, because then I don't have to sit there and check it, which is even better. And we're just going to sit and listen to them, because I think it's important that the forgotten ladies are heard. So, over to you.
Thank you, Alan. I'm just also just saying on behalf of my mum, who is a widow. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, but my dad's in the RAPL Reserve tests, so she would like to be here, but she's not. So I do appreciate you coming up on stage and sharing. Just make sure you look after yourselves, because some of the stuff that we talk about, it's tricky, it's really hard, isn't it? So I think what would be really lovely is if we get an introduction from each of you and maybe how you're connected to the test for your husband. Would that be okay? Would you like to start? Marion, or shall I let Barbara start?
I'll start.
Yeah? Okay.
Brian, my husband, I'm his second wife. He didn't really speak too much.
Excuse me, could you put your mic up? We can't hear you.
I'm Brian. I'm Marion. I'm Brian's my husband. I'm his second wife. He's just Brian, isn't it? He didn't really tell me anything about what's happening until after I'd had two children and then the result. He's, as everybody knows, very talkative now about it, but he didn't do it for quite a few years. So I can think about it a minute.
No, that's okay. That's really nice to hear. Thank you for sharing about Brian. Would you like to share, Jackie?
My name is Jackie, and I met David after he'd left the Air Force, and we both worked together. And we did talk about Australia, but only the nice bits about it, the bits he enjoyed, and then we got married, we had 2 children. I had a daughter who was 5, and Stephen, who has a few problems. It's a bit tricky going.
Okay, do you want to share, Janet? Janet?
I'm Janet Barton. I met Eric after he came back from Christmas Island. He was on Christmas Island with my brother-in-law, and so they got together, and I met Eric after he'd been to Christmas Island. We've got 2 children. I had a daughter, and then I had a miscarriage. And then we had our son.
Thank you, Sharon. Make sure you look after yourself. Barbara, you'd like to share?
My name's Barbara. Barbara. My husband was Charlie Butler, and I was his second wife, and I met him after he'd been on Christmas Island quite a few years before. He didn't speak a lot about it. We had 2 children. I had a son who has various medical problems. My daughter was born later as well, and she has many, many intricate medical problems. He told me fun things about Christmas Island. He wouldn't talk. He said he was there for Grapple X and Grapple Y, which was 1957, 1958. He just said about crab racing on the beach, swimming out to a raft that they'd built, but he wouldn't tell me any intricate details as such because of something they had to sign, the Official Secrets Act. They were told they weren't to tell anybody what went on Christmas Island. So I just knew that there was problems. I was a bit ignorant in that respect. But he was still cheerful, but he still had his times, and he had quite a few medical problems after Christmas Island. He had quite a few cancers, and it was cancer that, an unknown cancer that he passed away with, that they just couldn't explain. That's
Yeah, I'm very sorry. These are really difficult things, and I think what I was saying is like actually women and wives, widows, we haven't had, they've not had an opportunity, no voice to share, and so it's a very new experience, isn't it? I know that, one of my friends, Becky, she'd done some focus groups for a while ago, but actually the women, we haven't had an opportunity to share, have we? No. So I think, did your husbands ever tell you anything much? I know you've touched on it a little bit. Did they ever say anything particularly about what they witnessed?
David was at Maralinga, and they were doing a lot of the testing and bombing there. And the only thing he told me was that they built things that were similar to what was in England, like they built a row of houses, they souped them, and that was all to test what would happen if an aeroplane hit it, or was a problem, an explosion.
Did you hear anything? What they witnessed?
Would you like to find it? Because Eric saw the American bombs. He saw 6 bombs in 14 days. Gosh. So, yeah, but he only talked about 4 things. They
he said it was a sight to see. It was something that you could never imagine. But we didn't know how it had affected him. It's only later in life that we've realised how bad they were affected.
Absolutely, I think we'll come on to a little bit more about that in a little while if that feels okay. Have you got any kind of stories, Marion? I'm also aware of Marion, sorry, I'm so sorry, I totally forgot you were. You're massive on the screen, I'm so sorry, I didn't get you to introduce yourself. So, would you like to introduce yourself, Marion? Sorry. I don't know if she can hear me. No, I don't think you can.
Marion, you're muted.
We've got some technical.
Can you hear it, Marion?
Oh, yes, sorry, I was just trying to work out which Marion I should be. Sorry, there are two of us here. I totally apologise, I'm sorry I wasn't able to get to you. The trains were not working for me, unfortunately. I met my husband just after he left the Navy, a week after he'd left the Navy, in fact. He didn't mention anything about the tests at all until things started to come on the news, which was probably 80s, I'm not sure when. I quite frankly didn't believe him when the mushroom cloud came on the TV and he said, oh, I've seen some of those. And I said, oh, don't be stupid, of course you've not. Because it transpired that he had. He was stationed in Australia on Maralinga. He didn't say much about the tests, like most of the veterans. They locked it away and tried not to think about it. I would often say to him, particularly when he was ill, would you like me to get in touch with anyone? And he always said, no, they'll all be dead. And that was how he felt. And I think actually he was right. He was in reasonable health most of his life, but sadly we lost him to lung cancer.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't going to be emotional, but I am. I'm sitting looking at his picture now. He was very brave, very courageous during his illness. He was remarkable. And to this day, I'm very proud of him, that he was so amazing.
Yeah. And
There we go. We didn't have any children, sadly, but the two little girls who lived next door to us were like our two little girls. So we were very lucky in that respect. We ran the village store, and again, the community was our family, and we were honoured to do that. We served them for 30 years, so that was amazing.
it sounds like
So,
a wonderful man.
He was tremendous, a good support, and as I say, very brave to the end.
And I think this is so brave of you sharing your story, and again, make sure you look after yourself, because this is hard stuff to talk about. I think, I'm so sorry again for not bringing you into the conversation earlier. I think the things that we're hearing are the common losses as well. I know that my mum, she lost her husband when she was pregnant with me, so he died quite early as well. So I know that she'd be wanting to share and empathise and be with you as well, as connected, I guess, nuclear family in some ways. Yeah. I was wondering, so you talked a little bit from what I hear about, but it was so hard for all of the veterans. I don't know if you had anything, other Marion. Did he share much with you?
He would tell you what
He's not.
if what happened, you know, when they had to go out and put the computer on and that happened and all the, you see your hands and all this sort of thing, and to a letter, you know, you could feel as if you were actually in there.
Yeah.
You were in the story, and you couldn't believe it. And the mushrooms going off and all this, but it's sort of, he's still, he tells all these sort of stories, and he's very, very vocal now.
Mm-hmm.
He tells, he's getting really loud, he tells people, because he needs to know.
Yeah.
I don't think that's because they've kept it secret for so
So
long.
long, they've got to get out.
Now they've got to tell.
Yeah.
Because they have to share.
David was worried about the Official Secrets Act.
Sorry.
Sorry. Well, David was worried about the Official Secrets Act, even to the end. So he didn't really tell me a great deal about anything like dodgy, but when he retired and my son worked shifts where sometimes he had 3 days off, so they'd go off on these boys' weekends, and that's when he started to talk, and he talked to Stephen and tell him various things. And of course Stephen thought I knew, so we didn't talk about it, so it's only really since he died that we've talked a bit more about it.
You learn more about it from Stephen.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, I'm just wondering how, I mean, Barbara, you talked a little bit about the crabs, and that's something that springs to mind. I know my mum had said, oh, Dad was testing the fish or something, and the crabs, the land crabs. Lots of crabs. Not the Christmas island, yeah, especially in their dorms and things.
Yes.
Mm. Would you like to share anything else, Barbara, about?
Well, it's mostly what it was, he said about the fact that they're just in khaki, they're near the, on the beach, near the ocean sort of thing, they're told to close their eyes because if they hadn't put their hands over their eyes. And he said that he didn't, he opened his eyes, and he said you could see the bones of his hands, and you could see skeletons of others. You know, so he said he thought that was really weird, but funny, you know, in a weird sort of way.
What do you make of it? Like, I suppose to all of you, you're welcome, whoever would like to share, including you, Marion, on the video. You know, what did you make of those stories when they were sharing them with you?
I thought, you know, with radiography, I mean, you know when you go for an x-ray, everybody's got the lead aprons on. You think, well, why weren't they protected with lead aprons? No, not lead aprons, but something
Protective,
that was protected, you know.
Yeah. What were you thinking then? Do you want to share? So, Jenna.
Well, as I say, Eric only talked about the good things.
Yeah.
I don't think they really realised what had happened to them. I mean, nobody knew anything about radiation in those days, did they? And it's only when you start looking it up and listening to it and talking to people that do know that you find out, you know, what it can do to you.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric had a really big operation in '93 where he had heart cancer.
Yeah.
And we nearly lost him.
Gosh. So, there's a lot you've been through. Yeah. A lot of lives have been through.
David obviously knew that there was a problem when we had Stephen, because when I got home, he told me, he said, it's my fault, because of the tests that he was involved in. So they were obviously aware of it, but either couldn't or were perhaps afraid to speak of it because of the secrets. And he didn't die of anything connected with it. He had Alzheimer's.
Sorry, Barbara.
I was going to say, I know that Tony said he felt guilty that the children were affected. You know, they were, he said if he hadn't been on Christmas Island, they wouldn't have had those problems. We tried to say it wasn't his fault, it was his job, it was his duty as a serviceman. You know, you don't know what is in the future. Your children and grandchildren, you know.
Sounded they had held a lot of guilt and worry around what could have been the possible impact of that later on when they understood a little bit more about what they'd experienced. Yeah. How do you feel that it affected kind of your relationship, I suppose, with them being a veteran or being at the test? Did you notice anything, or do you think it impacted your relationship in any way? Anything? But again,
Not really, not an awful lot. Try to understand, but it's difficult because you didn't go through that.
of course you did.
It was another part, and he, as I said, all of them, because of the Official Secrets Act, they didn't speak. They weren't anyone. They weren't allowed to speak. Tell them, even the wives. Nobody. They weren't allowed to tell anybody.
And that's a long time to kind of hold something in mind, which is understandable because they had that instruction. I guess, you know, I think it's interesting because my mum didn't know much either, and I think once after coming to one of the meetups, we were carrying boxes from the loft that my mum hadn't unpacked for years, and it's like, oh, there's a grandma certificate, and she's like, I never knew these existed, because they must have been packed away really secretly. Lots and lots of hidden memories and things. I'm just wondering, yeah.
No.
How from our area, 5 other young men went to Christmas Island with Eric, and Eric is the only one that's left.
Do you notice the similarities with that?
Yeah, and they tried to, you know, we've got a photograph of all of these from he was with MT, it was the MT flag, and he's got photos of all of these men, and I can remember when we first started doing volunteer testing, he asking everybody, do you know so-and-so, do you know this one, and got this picture on the back, the son, and this is the no longer around, but he's not around now, so it's no good for me, because I wouldn't know Jonathan Adam.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of put the names to faces, isn't it? And searching out stories that you haven't known.
But this group it's fantastic. I think it's been helpful for me.
To have that connection.
Thanks to my daughter, actually, she has gotten more involved in it as well.
Yeah. Marion, Marion on there. Do you have any kind of things that you would like to share from what we've been discussing?
I'm sure I have lots, but I always remember Keith saying, obviously as a young man going out to somewhere very different, he was in the Navy, so being asked to fly somewhere was very exciting for him. That period of his life, I think he felt was a new adventure, something that he could enjoy, and Force's life, the camaraderie was wonderful. He often used to say they would go off in a Land Rover with several colleagues, they'd hook out the abos from the bomb craters and then enjoy a ride around the desert, you know, shoot some wildlife, be it a kangaroo or whatever, barbecue it, go back into the base. Boring for them, I think, a lot of the time, but nevertheless, a big adventure.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later on that he would tell us a little bit about it, not a lot, because it signed the Official Secrets Act, wasn't supposed to say, like most of the men. It wasn't easy, and his philosophy on life was, you don't look back, it's gone, it's past. Lock it away. It's like having, I always felt that it was like him having a chest of drawers in his brain. You put it in the drawer, push it shut, and that was it was gone. But obviously it wasn't his. He suffered, not physically, but mentally. He had lots of dark moods, obviously, as time went on and we understood more about the effects. He obviously worried about it a lot. He was a village postie, so he knew lots of people around the area. He would talk to them about it much more than he would talk to me. And it's only recently that when I've chatted to folks, how much he actually said to them. And one in particular was wonderful, and she made him go down to the local GP because he was obviously very worried about his health. Not that he'd got anything wrong with him at that point, but because he was worried about what would happen in the future. And that coloured his state of mind, and he had lots of dark moods which weren't easy to live with because I didn't understand what they were. And I'm only beginning to understand what those demons were, what the things that affected him that he tried to block out. His brother always blames Maralinga for his death. That's all I can say about that. That's how he feels. And I agree with him to a certain extent. He was a good man, helped everybody he could. As I say, it was an adventure to start with, which the consequences of not being understood, not having any help really, mentally or physically, PTSD wasn't understood at that point. As time went on, he would never have thought of asking for that sort of help. And I don't think there was any help for anyone. Not many years after the test. So we can't go back in time, but I hope that successive governments will learn from it, that if you ask your personnel to go out and do the job for the country, that they look after them in return, which I don't think they ever have.
I think you've shared, I think you've shared some really, really, important points as well, haven't you? I didn't want to cut you off there. What were you about to say?
Sorry, I'm not getting the sound very well on my end.
So I know you were just going to say something, Marion. Can you hear us okay now?
That's a bit better, yes.
Okay. And you were going to follow on with something.
I'm sorry?
I think we've got the funny IT here. Can you hear me now, Marion?
It's a bit better.
Okay. I think, we've touched on a lot of losses, and I'm just aware that these are tiny amounts of stories, and I'm just wondering, within what you want to share, you don't have to share anything you don't want to, but is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't been able to speak about now?
I wonder whether your husband had the same problem going to a doctor. Because I can remember Tony went to, when we moved house, and he went to the doctor with something, and he mentioned Christmas Island, and the doctor said, you're not my patient now, go find another doctor. Don't want to know. We don't have anything to do with that. Don't know anything about that.
Right.
You know, they're GP, you know, GPs or whatever, for some reason they were told, you know, ignore it. Ignore any problems that come up as regards that. So did anybody else have?
Whenever Eric's answered if radiation could be a cause of this, they've always said, or just hand up, or you don't see that doctor again, you know. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you, the things that you would like to share as well? Hear, just hear, make sure we can hear you, because it's really important to hear you and your story.
There's never anything like what your husband's had with the doctors, because generally his health was quite good. It was only in the latter years he had a bad skin problem that was only from where his shorts ended.
Oh, gosh.
It looked like, I wouldn't say, like large measles, this big rash.
Gosh.
So that was the only thing he had. But once he'd told me that he blamed himself really for Stephen, never really mentioned it again.
Yeah.
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 And
Blame themselves.
I didn't ask anymore because I was busy with a baby that wasn't very well and going around the routes of hospitals and doctors all the time. So that just went into the background. I never even thought about it again because it was done. Couldn't undo it.
And yet we're thinking about it now.
Yes. Yeah. But would we have been just fobbed off?
I think so. Well, yeah. I think so.
This is the common thing of not feeling listened to and heard.
We didn't get fobbed off. I know it's not been fobbed off when he's gone towards the doctors. No, the GP might not be able to refer him, and most of the consultants that he's had have been speaking before he says about Christmas Island and that. A lot of them are asked, I've said to him, have you been to Christmas Island and things like that. And we've got the one he's got just now is all for it. He's when he goes to see him, he asks him about how the nuclear thing is going on, because he follows it. And he says to Brian, because it's all sort of it's on his face, it's what his skin cancers.
Yeah.
He says there is no way that you can have, it's not nuclear.
Yeah.
He says because what you have is even with other, you know, you need to get the other. This is the worst thing than most things that got. It's quite funny when we go. It's a case of quickly with that, and then how can you get on to what's happening within the nuclear thing. So it's never really been talked off at all.
Yeah, we've always found that when Eric's mentioned it, they've always been, it's been just shrugged aside that it couldn't be anything to do with that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Marion, on the screen, would you like to say anything else about, you know, making sure you're feeling okay sharing as well, that about, you know, I guess either the impacts on yourself and the family, or from the testing, or from your husband being there?
Right, what's that for me?
Can you hear me?
Sorry, I can't hear it ever so well on my computer. Sadly, we didn't have a family. I'm not sure now whether that was a blessing or not, because obviously we didn't know anything really at that point in time. Keith was very reluctant to have any tests because he obviously felt that whatever had happened in Australia had probably affected him in some way. That was part of his demons. Whilst he was poorly, again, I think as somebody's just said, when I said about the nuclear tests, the specialists were very offhand and just poo-pooed it. Of course, it couldn't possibly be anything to do with that. And I felt personally that they were trying to not take any responsibility for that. There wasn't enough testing for that. And I fought tooth and nail for a couple of hours after Keith had died, because I felt that he should have had a post-mortem, which eventually we did get. The GP said, you don't need a post-mortem. He died of natural causes. He died of lung cancer. And I said, but I want to know why he died of lung cancer. There were lots of unanswered questions, and the coroner and the lady who does the post-mortems agreed that that was the case, and so that's what happened. But I don't think I should have had to have fought for it. It was, I needed to get rid of my demons, if you like, from his demons. I wanted answers, and I think for lots of unanswered questions, we don't have post-mortems because it's too upsetting for people and the question is never asked. And I personally feel that the medical profession in this modern age should be able to see that everybody is a forces veteran and should be asking the question, where were you based, what did you go through, that could have some bearing on whatever medical problem they've gone in for. I feel very strongly about that. Nobody seems to want to know, although I think they may be beginning to now. It's nearly 5 years since Keith was, since he died, so it certainly wasn't asked then. They didn't put any credence to it at all, and I feel that he was let down in that way. I don't know what anybody else feels about that. I mean, as far as, you know, any help that we had from...
I think we all feel the same, that we're all poo-pooed off.
Yeah.
And it can't be anything to do with radiation.
Was there anything else that you'd like to share, Janet? Because I know we touched on quite a lot today, and I'm just aware that we're coming up towards the end of the time.
Well, when Eric went out there, he told me he was going to a Paradise Island.
Sand paradise, Christmas.
Yeah, which he thought it was.
Yeah.
And they had an absolute whale. I mean, you can see from all the photographs around, they had an absolute whale at the time. But none of them knew the consequences of what they witnessed. Yeah. And that is the problem.
That is the problem, yeah. What do you, I mean, I think, Marion, you started to touch on it a little bit, that kind of recognition, answers, some support from medical professions, that we are starting to have awareness now. What else do you feel that you need right now, given all the things that we've talked about?
Germany was fighting all the way. It went on various rallies and meetings. veterans would have done that sort of thing, you know, and it did. She tried so hard. She thought, what is making me fight for him now? You know.
I think what would help a lot of veterans and us if they recognised what they did.
Yes.
Our boys.
Yeah.
Recognition, yeah, but an acknowledgement. What?
Yeah.
Support for their health and their children.
Yeah,
Children and grandchildren.
Our children, our children's children.
Children's children.
Yeah, children's children, our generation.
How far does it go?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was Gordon said it was 24,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
Mm.
She's had a long time.
I think I'd just like to thank each one of you, and Marion on the screen. You've been very kind to me, if you can hear me. I think you have all shared some amazing and difficult experiences, and I really appreciate what you've shared today, and I hope this is one of the first steps to sharing, you know, your voices, because actually
More to say as well.
absolutely more to say. Absolutely more to say in the future. This is the first steps.
These are just the first, yes.
First steps to get your voices heard, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies. I know some of you were nervous to go up there. And it's just, you've only got to be extremely upset or extremely angry. And I think, personally, you've got to be both. Just listening to you. I get emotional, Marion, sorry. Because we do. Yeah. And just say thank you very much. Then have a quick break while I rearrange the set. You're all, in my eyes, you're all stars. Because this is the first time, really, that your voice is coming out. It's been suppressed for too many years. Yeah, you've lived it. You've lived with these guys. You've lived through it. Yeah, even for, the whole, not even just for the whole time. You are experiencing it now. You know, with veterans at the bottom, veterans that are still here. You're supporting them, which is exactly what we're all doing.
I think the hardest part is that they feel that they've just been rushed aside. Yeah. That our government does want to recognise. I mean, how can we be the only government in the world that doesn't recognise that radiation affected our soldiers?
Yeah. What I'd like to do is get Rebecca to arrange it. I'll put it all on Rebecca. Is get the front bench of the Conservative Party to sit and watch and listen to you for 40 minutes and still deny the guy's recognition. So, Susan will cut the live feed and we'll have a quick reset.